Hey guys, welcome to Stav's channel, She Equips Herself. And this week we're going to talk about the philosophy of defensive firearms. And I have two questions for you to ask yourself while you watch the intro. Number one, why do you carry or own defensive firearms? And two, do you currently carry or own the correct or best defensive firearm for your needs? For all of you that are disappointed that you're seeing my face and not Stavroula's face, I completely understand. I would much rather be looking at Stavroula's face than mine as well. But Stav is feverishly trying to complete the Armed and Confident Academy, which she's looking to roll out on February 1st, and she's just finalizing all sorts of things that go into that. And she just didn't have time to do a video this week, but she loves being able to put out at least one video a week. She wants to make sure you have fresh content every week, so she asked me if there was any type of topics or anything I'd like to discuss. And based on last week's video and then a new video I saw on YouTube just recently, I thought this would be an excellent kind of video to share with you and discuss as we move forward. What is the philosophy of defensive firearms? Let me explain it to you. So I've been at this firearms instruction racket for a little over 20 years now. And in that time, I've worked with hundreds to possibly thousands of Marines and police officers and thousands upon thousands of citizens who carry and own firearms. And a topic that always comes up is people asking me, what type of firearm should I carry? Or, Mac, what type of firearm should I have for home defense? And I've thought about this so many times and had so many discussions of this over the years. I kind of developed a system, if you will, or an understanding or a way to put it back on the person asking and make sure that they get exactly what they want. So when someone asks me what I think, I basically turn it around on them and find out what they think. And that's the most important thing. And the more I work in the firearms industry, the more it always kind of makes me smile when people always seem to have the answers. You know, they know, like, you know, there's I guarantee people that are going to comment on this video and they're gonna tell you what you should carry, and they should tell you what your needs are. It's totally up to you, and it's just important that you fully understand your needs, because I think a lot of people don't. I don't think a lot of people think about it and fully try to explain it to themselves on what they actually need, and then they end up kind of not having the correct tool. So someone comes out to me and says, Mac, what type of firearm should I carry? The first thing I ask is, well, tell me about why you want to carry a firearm. What are your defensive firearms needs? What is your philosophy of use for that firearm? So if it's just going to the range and enjoying things, that's get whatever you want, you know, just enjoy that. But when it comes to defensive firearms, it's important that you, as the person who's going to be using this firearm, has a firm understanding as to why you might need that firearm and why you might want that firearm. So some things to think about, something you might want. Why do you have a defensive firearm? Why do you carry a firearm? Well, it might be like home defense. I want to defend my family and myself while in the home. All right, that's one reason to have defensive firearms. Another thing might be an active shooter threat. One of the primary reasons I carry off duty is if I ever have to deal with an active shooter. So you might carry firearms on your body, and the primary reason you do that is in case someone else decides they want to murder a bunch of people, and you want to be able to either keep yourself and your family alive or stop that person and keep other people alive. Maybe you're concerned about just flat out mentally ill people, and that happens all the time. I mean, the mentally ill situation in America is dramatically worse than most people realize. From my standpoint, I'm dealing with it all the time at work, and some of those people, when they're off their meds or they're not feeling like themselves that day, can be extremely violent and extremely strong and very capable of causing a tremendous amount of damage. Maybe it's sexual assault. Maybe it's being kidnapped. You don't want someone to sexually assault you or kidnap you. Maybe you carry a firearms because you want to defend your children. You have a fear of someone kidnapping your children or getting their hands on your children, and you may have no way of defending them. Maybe it's like an armed robbery, which is not something I ever really think about too much, but it might be. Carjacking, armed robbery, things like that. Maybe that's a reason why you carry firearms. Maybe it's an animal attack. Maybe you don't want to get bit by someone else's dog or a coyote or a mountain lion. I'm not sure where all you live, but you know, it's very, very possible. Maybe you have a stalker, like a known person that either wants to murder you or sexually assault you or something like that. So you actually have like a legitimate person in mind that you're defending yourself from. These can be all over the map. We all carry for our own reasons. But what we have to understand is, why are we carrying that firearm, or why do we have that firearm in the home? And do we have the correct firearm based on what we actually are defending against? So what does that fight look like to you? What does that engagement between you and the bad guy, how do you perceive that to go down? And do you have the correct tools to get the job done? And do you have the correct skill set to actually win that fight? That's something to think about. It's a good idea to kind of understand the possible uses of that firearm and make sure that you have the correct or the best weapon you can to defeat that potential threat. And I've bumped into this many, many times in my career. One particular conversation always comes to mind with a police officer friend of mine who did not carry firearms off duty. He was not a big gun guy. He was an excellent detective and a good cop. But he came to me one day and he said, "Mac, I want to carry a firearm off duty." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "What do you think I should carry?" And I said, "Well, what do you want a firearm for?" And then he flat out, the first thing he said was, "Well, I'm worried about active shooter threats, especially when I'm out with my family and things." And I said, "Okay." And just as I was about to start asking him more questions and get a little bit more answers, he said, "So I think I'm going to get a Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 380. And I paused and I was like, "Well, I don't think that that's going to be a good choice." And again, I don't like to inject my opinion on other people's. I just like to get them to kind of think of their own opinions. But I knew him well enough. When we worked enough cases together, I kind of put it on him. I said, "Do you really want to go into an active shooter event armed with a 6-shot, 2.5-inch barreled 380 that's prone to malfunction and inaccuracy and horrible?" Like that's just a terrible firearm in my opinion. And I really like Smith & Wessons. They're one of my favorite brand, but they made a real clunker with that one. I am not talking about the Smith & Wesson 380 EZ, by the way. I'm talking about the original Bodyguard 380. That's the problem gun. I think the 380 EZ is actually a very nice gun. And he kind of just stuck to his guns, and he thought that would be, the right gun. And I said, "Well, maybe you should just carry your duty gun." He was carrying a Glock 23 at the time, and you can conceal a Glock 23 without too much problems. But it was just basically a back and forth that went on for several minutes. That he was kind of already decided that he wanted a 380, but using that particular gun to go up against an active shooter threat, which is like a known, generally a person with a rifle or a pistol with lots of bullets, possibly body armor, and a desire to really not care if they live or die and just kill lots of people. That's not a person you really want to fight with a 6-shot, horrible trigger pull, short barrel, prone to malfunction firearm. You might want a different firearm if that's the reason you carry. And then just recently I watched a video, and I'm going to put the link to the video here. And I watched this video, and I'm just going to, you might even want to pause this and go watch that video, but I'll talk about it a little bit. It's a couple that lives in an apartment, and they have a known violent and aggressive neighbor. And they buy firearms for the deliberate intent to defend themselves in their apartment from this threat. And the two firearms they buy is a 9mm handgun and a .22 caliber handgun. And they start to train and they start to get proficient with those firearms. And sure enough, several months later, this guy actually attacks their apartment with an axe, hacks his way right through the door with an axe, and one of the homeowners, the male homeowner, shoots him 3 times with a 9mm handgun and is able to defeat him and keep himself and his girlfriend alive. However, if that person had come to me and said, or had come to anyone and said, I'm looking to defend myself from a potentially mentally ill, very aggressive, very violent person, I probably, and they're not going to carry the gun, they're just going to have in the house, I probably would not recommend a 9mm handgun, just because the potential to actually stop the threat. And I think that they were extremely lucky watching that video that they were able to stop this guy before he put that axe into one of them. So if that conversation had occurred, I would probably help them to realize that a long gun of some variety would have been a much better choice in that exact principle. The difference in capability between, let's say, a 12 gauge or even a 20 gauge shotgun and a 9mm handgun is pretty dramatic. So if someone were to be smashing through my door with an axe, I would much rather be able to hit him with a shotgun blast over a handgun any day of the week. It's way more likely to stop him in his tracks. This particular guy was shot 3 times with a 9mm and did survive. So that means the damage wasn't that extent. And they were lucky to survive that without extensive injuries. There's story after story after story about people who are attempting to hurt other people just soaking up handgun rounds and taking well over 10 shots to the body and still being able to continue their attack. So a long gun, preferably, you know, a shotgun at close distance, would probably eliminate the threat and keep you a lot safer. Just statistically speaking, you're way more likely to survive that event with a shotgun in your hand than with a handgun. So carrying the correct firearm for what your needs are is really, really important. And it doesn't mean that one particular firearm can't cover an extremely large genre of different situations. It's just important that you are doing your best to fit the right tool to the right possible situation. Now, one thing that I will warn you against, and this comes from a lot of experience dealing with high stress situations, is I would caution you against having a bunch of different firearms and carrying different firearms depending on where you're going and what you're doing that day. Think of it this way. When you are not driving your vehicle, you jump into someone else's vehicle, do you ever screw up the gas or brake as far as the sensitivity? Do you ever forget how to adjust something like the heat or something? It takes you like just an extra second to realize that the buttons are over here, not over here, and you have that like slight delay. Or the first time you hit the brakes, you're a little bit herky-jerky. Or if you're a competitive shooter, if you've shot a lot and maybe you switch from one gun to the other, you'll find that there's a little bit of a learning curve whenever you change your gear. And this has happened to me many times in my police career, mostly when I change a spot on my gear. I move my cuffs over or I move my pepper spray over, and then I need it under a high stress situation and I can't quite find it because it used to be always over here and now it's over here. So my best recommendation would be that once you figure out why you need a firearm, why you carry a firearm, why you want a firearm, trying to get one particular firearm that fits as many of those needs as you possibly can. And if you can't do that, if you need multiple firearms, I would try to limit it to 2. I would not go over 3. If you go into 3, that's all right too. But I guess you have to train a lot and you have to kind of memorize how everything works, because under stress, all sorts of things fall apart. And if you've never been under like life and death or even fighting stress, you're just gonna have to take my word on it. But when you're under a lot of stress, you will not act and think the same that you normally do, and it's really important to have the same exact tool on your body all the time. So one thing to think about is if you like one particular platform and you like to carry a small gun on certain days and then a slightly larger gun with a little bit more capability on other days, I would highly recommend that you stay within one single platform. And that's really what we've done here as far as, what I've carried for many, many years of what I use, and now what Stav's carried. Luckily for me, she just happened to like that. But about 10 years ago, I got issued a Smith & Wesson M&P 45. So I'm carrying a Smith & Wesson M&P. Whether I want to or not, that's what I'm carrying. So as I decided that I was going to get an off-duty firearm, it just made sense to go with a Smith & Wesson Shield, just because everything's the same. So this is actually Stav's Shield Plus. But when you compare an M&P to a Shield, the magazine release is in the same spot, the slide stop's in the same spot, a lot of times the sights are the same, the triggers can be almost exactly the same, and it gives you a lot of the same characteristics, a lot of the same muscle memory or myelination, if you want to get technical, that you have with another firearm. So now I carry a Smith & Wesson M&P 9C, and that's my new duty firearm. So it still makes sense. Now I carry this a lot off duty. I usually pop off that light, but sometimes I carry with the light. But all the controls that are on this match up almost perfectly to this. And the trigger pulls are very, very close. She's got that super awesome flat trigger, which I don't have. But other than that, things are very, very similar. So if you are going to have different firearms, and I do. I carry the shield regularly. That's probably my primary off-duty weapon. And then if I think I need a little bit more horsepower because of wherever I'm going, I carry my duty firearm, which is a 15-shot 9mm or a 17-shot 9mm compared to the 10 to 13-shot Shield Plus. But I feel very confident moving within those two firearms, that if you put either one in my hand, things are gonna go well for me and I should be able to defend myself. If I switched over from Smith & Wesson and I just wanted to carry that new Ruger LCP Max that me and Stav just got, or I got for Stav, there's a lot of different things going on here. Completely different trigger pull, completely different slide stop, completely different angle of the grip to the barrel. There's a lot of learning curve that goes into this. So when you're switching from firearm to firearm, whether you have home defense firearms, whether you carry let's say a compact on days that you're more concerned with an active shooter threat, but you carry a subcompact or a pocket or micro pistol on days you're not even at all worried about an active shooter threat and you're just simply worried about lower grade threats, I would try to persuade you to try to keep everything in the same genre for your own needs, and that'll allow you a much better chance of responding correctly. Another thing that I wanted to discuss this week is last week we talked about the mathematical appropriate carry system, which is, we nicknamed the MAC system, but I added some things to that and I tried to make it as user-friendly as I possibly could. And one thing about that is it's designed to compare like firearms. Like when you understand why you want to carry and you're trying to basically narrow it down to 2 or 3 firearms and trying to figure out the best gun for you, that's really what it's for. It's not designed to go from like full size to subcompact. Those might have different uses, but it's designed to just kind of narrow your needs down and take a lot of the, like I've said before, the cool factor out of it. The cool factor can also be the new factor. A lot of us, when we get new guns, we immediately want to carry them, and maybe that's not the most responsible thing that we should be doing. So it's designed to kind of help you out, and I want to make it available to you, so it will be connected to this, so you can download it and you can give it a try. And just remember that that's not like set in stone. Nothing on it is set in stone. What you do this week may not be the same as in a month from now. Just because you chose or one particular gun won on that day doesn't mean that later it might lose. That we can change guns, we can add different magazines, and then we can just get more trigger time at the range. And you might become more accurate with one gun than the other, or you might like it more. And it's basically just used to help you out to know what you should use or carry like this week, for the next few weeks until you go to the range again and possibly things can change. But it is designed to kind of push out the cool factor, the emotional decisions, and just try to stick with more of like a logical decision on which is the best firearm to put on your body that particular day. So that'll be attached at the bottom, and feel free to use whatever numbers you like. I like to use 1 through 3 as my scoring system, but you want to use 1 through 5, 1 through 10, whatever you like. Just be consistent though. Just try to be consistent, and the numbers will all work out probably to the best of your ability. So, and feel free to just skip sections if you want. Like for instance, I have a relative who really does not care about the weight of a handgun at all. He spent most of his life carrying a full-size 1911, which is like over a 40-ounce gun. So he's used to carrying heavy guns. He doesn't care about weight. So if you get to sections that you don't care about, you can just leave them blank. So make it your own. Do whatever you like with it. Use it to whatever extent you want. But feel free to just move around and skip entire sections and use whatever scoring you like. Think about what your firearms needs are, especially in the self-defense world. Understand the differences of what's, the pros and cons of rifles versus shotguns versus handguns of many varieties, from pocket pistols to full size and everything in between. And make sure that you're arming yourself with the best tool that you can for your needs. All right, that's gonna do it. I was trying to keep it nice and quick. Please keep an eye out for Stavroula's Armed and Confident Academy. That should be coming out February 1st. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you got something out of watching this. So Stav will be with you again in a week from now, posting another video, and keep an eye out for her Armed and Confident Academy. Stay safe. Bye-bye.